Skip Sligh, Iowa Whitetail, farmer, Iowa advocate, family man, and this is the Prairie Farm Podcast.
I'm Mark Kenyon.
I'm Dr. Julie Meechan.
I'm Steve Hansen.
I'm Jill Bebout.
Chad Gravy.
My name is Jeremy French.
I'm Laura Walter.
Carol Hawksbergen, owner of Hoxie Native Seeds, and this is the Prairie Farm Podcast.
This is Hal Herring, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Podcast.
Skip Sligh, Iowa Whitetail.
Valerie Van Coten, State Historical Society of Iowa.
Dr. Matt Helmer at Iowa State University.
My name is Kyle Laubarger with the Native Habitat Project.
I'm Judd McCullum. I appeared out of the wilderness, and this is the Prairie Farm Podcast.
Welcome to the Prairie Farm Podcast.
It may sound weird, but I actually ask my friends about their finances, but not only about how their finances are, but specifically things like how much money do you have in your bank account? Are you saving for your kids' future? Do you have a retirement plan that's in line? And the reason I ask these questions is because I know that finances put more stress on most people than anything else. And one of the biggest alleviators of stress from finances in my wife and I's life was when we switched to McKay Insurance. Now, we did this way before they were a sponsor of the podcast, but once we did it, we got our life insurance lined up, we got our health insurance for a much better deal, and we were able to bundle everything that we had, and we saved a bunch of money. We're actually able to connect with the people who are giving us our insurance and helping us do our financial planning. I highly recommend McKay Insurance. That's McKayInsagency.com.
Skip, you're at a point in your life, and I guess we could say career, even though we just talked about what is your career.
I have 15 jobs.
Yeah, you have 15 jobs. And I think they center around land more than hunting. I mean, hunting is what brought you to this, to what you do with the land, right? But I really think it's, you care, this is just me, I don't want to put words in your mouth here, but I perceive that your number one care is for the land itself. You try and make it better than you found it. But that being said, if you had to take a poll of all the people that know who Skip Sligh is, they'd probably associate the word hunting with you first. So you have rubbed shoulders with basically everyone there is to rub shoulders with in the hunting industry. And you were telling us that you've been into some pretty impressive trophy rooms and you've noticed a common theme.
Oh yeah, that's a good story. So here's a point I would make. People always say, especially on social media, which there's so much just crazy opinions and information, they always say like, money buys big bucks or stuff like that. They'll say comments like that, like money buys big deer. And don't misunderstand, it absolutely helps. It absolutely does. But I actually know a lot of people who shoot some giant deer with no money. They travel, they're scouting machines, they're willing to go where the big deer are, etc. And the way I would, in a sense, just more for fun, but the way I would illustrate or prove that point is all of the people that you can think of that have unlimited funds or that spend obscene amounts of money to travel around the country or the world hunting. And you go into their trophy rooms and maybe they've been to Africa, maybe they've been to out west, maybe they've been to Alaska, Canada, all over the world hunting. And they'll have just impressive mounts for elk and mule deer and goats and African species and all these things. And 9 out of 10 of them do not have a wall of giant whitetail bucks. It is the one common theme I see in most of those cases where the money is unlimited and they still have a very difficult time getting giant whitetail deer with as much money that they could devote to it. And I would say it's the most difficult thing to achieve. And I see it over and over.
That's really interesting data.
Not from a hunter, but like the big game in North America. What big game do you have to have a high skill set in the hunter category to be impressed? You know what I mean? Because like in Africa, a lot of times they'll walk you right up to the, but I know whitetail is tough. Are there any others? Like, what is the hardest big game to have on your wall?
a fully mature whitetail, like 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old whitetail, and I'd say 6, 7, 8 is probably it. Now,
more than like elk.
Oh, for sure.
Oh,
for sure. I know so many guys that have shot, and I'm not big into the elk, so I don't know this stuff. But high 300s, yeah. 400s, and the amount of guys I know that have shot high 300s, 400s, even with some consistency, that haven't shot like a 7-year-old just gigantic whitetail is almost every one of them. It's by far the hardest, and the other reason is the really old giant whitetail is actually very rare though too. They're very rare. Even in some of the best neighborhoods, they're very rare. And then you go to certain states with like bad regulations, and it's like, they just don't exist. Mm-hmm. So, I could be a billionaire, but own and hunt in like, Michigan or out east or something, and just hunt on regular farms, and there isn't one that exists. Mm-hmm. Maybe if you could lock up thousands and thousands and thousands of acres, that would obviously help, but you can hunt in so many states where it's like that giant mega monster whitetail, just they don't exist on the landscape. Yeah. So, finding them is so hard. And the other side of that coin, though, we could have it where a lot more people were very successful on giant whitetails, which everybody wants to be, and a lot of people get frustrated. But if we had better regulations across the Midwest, there absolutely would be more of them. And there's really no downside to having more mature bucks on the landscape. There isn't any downside. Mm-hmm. Maybe you could make an obscure argument for it, but having no mature bucks on the landscape and all the young bucks getting shot, too many does, horrible ratios, not a balanced age class, really bad sex ratios, there's a lot of downsides to that. So if we can just have balance across the Midwest, everybody benefits, and more people could achieve what is so rare. Mm-hmm. And what so many people are seeking is trying to get on those truly old, smart, giant whitetails, and even just by age, hunting a fully mature whitetail, I don't care what it scores even, is challenging, it's fun, it's rewarding, and so many guys are seeking it. And it's just so hard to find that. And I wish it was more common, to be honest.
Why?
And I don't want this sport to be, so let me make a fine point right here before I go on. But I don't want this sport to be for the rich man. I want it so it's better across the whole landscape, for everybody, for the kids, for the everyday man. So they're not like, I want them to say, hey, I don't have to have millions of dollars to hunt mature deer. And like I said, certain guys can grind it out and go to extremes to get on mature deer, but it's so hard. There's so much extra work. And I wish it was just a little more balanced and of higher quality and management so the everyday guy who didn't have the money had more opportunities.
Man, the one of the most frustrating stories that I think about is a friend of ours was out hunting public land, and hour and a half from here. And some guy who has private land butting up against him knew there was a giant buck in there and took his UTV and just ripped up and down the fence line right there. I was so upset. I was like, that dude's not a hunter. That guy's trying to, I don't know, but it's not, they're called sportsmen. There's no sportsmanship about that. I was so frustrated. And I was thinking, like, with whitetail deer, it truly is, well, most hunting, rising tide raises all ships in terms of landscape and ecology and the health of the habitat going on around. But yeah, I was listening to you talk like, we don't want it to just be for the rich man. And that guy was all about himself on that one.
Well, and I've been on both sides of that, where like I was the broke kid, looking at the green grass across the fence going, man, I wish I could hunt next to that or hunt on that land. I wish I owned that, and hunting the degraded, just the worst ruination of hunting experiences anybody can imagine. I've been that kid, or been that guy even. So I get that. And there's these, there's these dynamics in hunting because mature bucks are so rare and there's so many people competing over it, which I don't like. I wish there was just, hey, it's fairly natural that there's a mature buck in every neighborhood, so everybody had a chance and people weren't so protective of it. But because they're so rare, you get the landowners who step over the line, like, I own these, I want to keep somebody else from shooting my deer. And they can make poor choices like what you illustrated. And I agree, there's a line there. And then there's a line on the other side where some guys will be like, they'll literally seek out the guy that does do things right. Yeah. And all of a sudden you're like, why is there 50 guys hunting this guy's fence line? Yeah. Where every other normal farm there might be like one or two. Right. But you go, and I'll be honest, like, I've been on both sides. I'll have farms where, you look and there hasn't been a person hunting across this fence on this like degraded pasture with like 2 trees. And there's nothing there. It doesn't hold deer, doesn't grow deer, nothing. And all of a sudden you manage things well, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's 5 guys hunting there all of a sudden. Yeah. Because they know you put in the work. So, there's 2 sides to this coin. And, so I would say, one, it's distasteful for the landowner, in your example, to do that, to ruin somebody else's hunt and think he owns a deer. And I think it's problematic, it's unethical, it's unsportsmanlike, it's unfortunate, all the words you want to use. And then on the other side of that, there's other people who want to take advantage of other people's hard work too, where, I get soured on that as well. So, there's a balance there. There's a fine line. And that's why we have, there's ethics that should be involved in this sport. And I think people know when they're pushing the ethical boundaries when it comes to hunting, and some people don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. And it is so interesting why, like you said, they are a rarity for one, but does it just come down to there's so many people after them, and the habitat in which they are found is it's parceled up, especially if you get into states like Wisconsin, Michigan, where
we're actually pretty parceled up here in Iowa.
Yeah, yeah.
People don't realize that we are.
What do you consider parceled up?
Well, you look at most of Iowa. Go to most of our wooded areas, with a few exceptions. You'll find 10, 20, 40 acre tracts, 5 acre tracts, 80 acre tracts. And you look at the largest piece of land in the state of Iowa, it's 4,300 contiguous acres owned by a private landowner. That is the largest in the whole state of Iowa.
Really?
You go to Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, Illinois, any other surrounding state, any one, Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, 4,300 is fairly common. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying they're all over the place, but to say the biggest farm in the state of Iowa privately owned is 4,300 acres. Does Wisconsin have one of those? Wisconsin has tons of those. And they have bigger ones of those.
That's not... Oh, that's contiguous farm.
Contiguous privately owned.
Yeah.
We are actually very segmented up in Iowa, more so than people think.
That's very interesting.
And I have to mention this one too, because I reached out. I made a post on this earlier. But I went to every DNR and every state agency in the Midwest, and I got their data for the amount of hunters, how much habitat they have, how much timber, CRP, swamps, marshes, prairies, grassland. And when you look at the habitat where deer exist, Iowa has the most amount of hunters per habitat of any state in the Midwest.
You made a post about that, didn't you? I remember that.
Fact.
That was fascinating.
And people say, that's misleading because of this. No. I did it in every context known to man, and I just took their data. Yeah. And people always want to have a problem with anything you post on social media.
Oh, yeah.
But I just asked for their data. Yeah. I mean, we have timber mixed with ag. We have CRP. We don't have any marshes in Iowa. They've all been drained. We don't have any swampland in Iowa. It's all been drained. So we really have timber, very little, about 7% now. And we have ag mixed with timber, but every Midwestern state has ag mixed with timber. Southern Minnesota has tons of it. Southern Wisconsin has tons of it. We have the least amount of habitat of any Midwestern state, with the least amount of deer and the least amount of public land, with the most hunters per huntable acre of habitat. So to say, I always hear, I've heard it since I was a little kid, well, you go to Iowa and there's just so few hunters. It's like, and I've lived here for 25 years and I've been in every county in the state, and I've owned land in probably 20 counties. It's like, where are these places where it's not high hunter density? Because everywhere I go is full of hunters, full of them. And it's baloney to say that we have low hunter density here. And when you look at the actual data and look at the facts, we are actually number one. People can't grasp that, but it is a fact.
Really fascinating.
Do you think there'd be more hunters if there was more land to hunt in Iowa? Do you think we're maxed on how many hunters can hunt the...
We're maxed out. And that's why we have a non-resident quota of 6,000. We can't take any more on. And, I don't want to change the non-resident quota. I would not advocate for it at all. But if somebody said, hey, just based on the data, based on the facts, what should we do with the non-resident quota? Just for the good of the resource and for the residents of Iowa, you'd say zero. There's no reason to bring in non-residents when your residents don't have places to go, when access is difficult, when the number one reason cited by residents, especially kids, that they quit hunting is lack of access to quality land. You don't bring in any non-residents at that point. When you have a surplus, you bring in a lot of non-residents. So, and I don't think we should change it, but the best place to take in like non-residents would be something not as fragile as a deer herd with, the least amount of deer and the least amount of habitat of all the Midwest. And again, these people are traveling from other states with more habitat, more deer, the same deer, by the way, just bad regulations. And they're just traveling here to hunt older bucks. So the real answer is fix your own states, fix your broken regulations, which they can do, which some states are doing. Indiana's made huge strides. Kentucky's made huge strides. Michigan finally changed a couple things. And they need to keep going. But it's like this little sliver we have here in Iowa, which is 2.8 million acres of timber, with 165,000 deer hunters. I think that's about right. We can't take any more on. And there's millions and millions and millions and millions of acres of public land. Even states like Michigan, 19 million acres of forest.
Wow.
Wisconsin, Minnesota, it's 17 to 20 million acres of forest when we have 2.8, but they all come here. It's like you have 10 times or 5 times what we have and more deer.
What's up with Wisconsin? Why are their deer so much younger?
They need to go to one buck. They just overshoot everything. Their gun season is too early, and they need to go to one buck. And online, the Wisconsin people love to brag that they're the number one B and C state, and I want to just agree with them. Absolutely, you guys are. Everybody needs to go to Wisconsin. By the way, they have over-the-counter non-resident tags.
Yeah, they do.
So you don't need to come to Iowa. You can go to Wisconsin.
What is it?
You don't have to wait 6 years for a tag.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can get over-the-counter tags. So everybody that wants to come to Iowa and wait 6-7 years, you're crazy. Just go up to Wisconsin. It's over-the-counter, and it's far cheaper than Iowa.
Yeah, it is.
And it's better hunting.
Yeah.
Look at they keep saying it.
Yeah, sometimes they hit 110s over in Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's silly. I mean, there's a few areas where the land is locked up, and I'd say most are B and C bucks. It's in areas where it's heavily managed, which is great. I applaud that. It's really locked up for access. People got to just really tighten things down to get a few deer to maturity, but it's so rare. I mean, this farm I bought from Wisconsin people, the farm next to me I bought from Wisconsin people. I have Wisconsin people come hunt my farm every year because I have tons of friends from Wisconsin, from the top end of that state to the bottom. I have Wisconsin people out here every year. And to say they're comparable is silly. And Wisconsin, but here's the funny part. They're not comparable, even when the sliver of habitat we have and the sliver of deer. But they could be way better than Iowa.
Yeah.
Way better.
Well, to me, Missouri is the state that
Missouri is number one.
They should be the absolute best place in the world to hunt.
Best potential state, bar none. I think I think they have 18 million acres of timber, and it's just right there through my window. We can just about see Missouri. It looks amazing. And you go across there and it gets even more rural, less people. Yeah. It is broke up so amazing. And 18 million acres of forest, way more deer than Iowa. And it's just immaculate habitat mixed with agriculture. But the regulations just need to be fixed, which, I do think.
What needs to be fixed about them?
The rifle season needs to be moved back, mirror Iowa, like December 1st, and they need to go to 1 buck. And the third thing they need to do urgently is put a non-resident quota in place.
Yeah. They have the trifecta of problems going on where guns during the rut, over the counter, non-resident, and then they're a $2 state, aren't they? For
$2, crazy. Yeah. And you go across the line because
regular rifle.
So you go across the line, and our DNR got the Missouri DNR's data on how many people are shooting does. We're shooting over half of our harvested does. Hunters are taking probably too many does in Iowa. The second you cross the line, we got Missouri's data, and the amount of doe shot goes down the tubes.
Really?
It's just they're shooting all the bucks, and so many parcels are locked up by non-residents, outfitters, leased up.
Do they still do antler point restrictions down there?
I'm not sure on that.
I hunted it years ago, I think 2019, and I was in an antler point restriction county.
We do a better job managing our deer herd in Iowa when they're not shooting, like they're overrun in certain areas with does, according to them, according to the DNR. You guys aren't shooting enough does, and their data shows that they shoot a far lesser ratio of does because everybody is just annihilating all the bucks, and they're just out to kill bucks, where we shoot slightly over 50% does in the state of Iowa.
Man, you're hitting on like a very human condition, which is like, why get more later when I can have some now? And have you heard that experiment with the marshmallow? I've been bringing this up a bunch recently because I think it really plays to humans. So it was little kids. They did this experiment on little kids, and they left a marshmallow in front of them, right?
Yeah.
And the whole idea is that if the kid, they said, hey, don't eat the marshmallow, and if you don't, we'll be back in 10 minutes. We'll give you another one or 10 or something like that. Yep. And then they tracked the kids for like 20 years after that, and the ones who didn't eat the marshmallow did way better in life, just in general, by basically every benchmark you could hope to measure.
Well, that goes into every part of our life. That's why, most people don't invest. It's why most people have significant credit card debt. It's why people rag on the 1% that are wealthy that actually had discipline for decades and did things right. It's why even in like farming, when you look at, I can get a little better stand if I diss the living daylights out of my soil right now, but I know over the long term it's going to hurt my soil. Yeah. If I don't do no-till, I might not get quite as good a stand. It's not going to warm up the soil as much, but you track stuff out like that out, and all of a sudden it's like 10 years in, the guy who did no-till is actually having far better results for yields, but it took him time. So you can replicate that example and illustrate it in so many different parts of life. Mm-hmm. And it's like, the people who didn't take the marshmallow in any one of those examples is the minority. And a lot of times people don't like them or, envy them or something. And it's like, and I probably was like that when I was younger, being broke and seeing the rich guy that wouldn't let me on his land, and probably didn't like the rich guy even. But now it's kind of like, I don't care about somebody being rich but people who are successful now, I just like, you want to learn from them or learn what made them successful, learn about the discipline, learn about all the hardships that maybe they took on, so they did have better results later. So I think more society gets with that mindset of looking longer term, clearly the better off we're going to be for it. And clearly you can look at the problems across the state of Iowa or across the country and saying, all these short-term fixes, look at all the problems it's caused us. And that's a whole can of worms.
Well, one of the things I wanted to kind of extrapolate from this is every now and then I'll hear from somebody who's a non-resident landowner in Iowa, and they'll say, I understand you guys got your rules, and I get it. You want to protect the resource, this and that. But what about in this one specific case? I just don't understand why the state, and I've even had people say, and I know Skip wouldn't agree with me on this, but if you just think about it, they start doing that.
Oh yeah.
What
about my unique example?
Yes, exactly. What are some of the unforeseen consequences if the state were to say, one of those, if you own land here, and or maybe I'll just word it this way instead of giving a specific example. If you're a non-resident landowner, if the door was opened, not all the way, not to where, oh yeah, you're a landowner here, you get a tag every year, like Illinois is. What if they just lessened it, maybe cut it in half? But if they started to open up more tags to non-resident landowners in Iowa, what would be the unintended consequences and unforeseen consequences that the average person doesn't understand?
Okay, that's a really great question. And I have this conversation all the time with my friends who are non-residents that want to give me their unique example, or could you just do this, or what about, come on, this does make sense to do that. Here's the deal. If we open it up a little bit, because I know these non-resident groups that have tried to change our laws, I know them. Yeah. Some of them have even apologized for doing it later. I know how they talk to the legislators to try and get the legislators in their pocket. I know their arguments. Their plan, make no mistake about it, at least some of them, if they get one crack, like, hey, let's make half the tags for people who own land, or if you own this amount of acres, you get a guaranteed tag, or you just get preference points.
Right.
All they want is a wedge in, and they're going to, so that's one legislative session. Yeah. Their plan, the next legislative session after that, when we have a next election, new politicians, they're going to go for everything. Their plan, and somebody'd say,
that's a key little thing there, new politicians, somebody who doesn't understand all the backstory.
And some people might say, well, in my example, I'm not looking for that. I'm just saying, if I own 1,000 acres, shouldn't I be able to get a tag, or 100, or, I've owned it for 20 years or something. You might want that, but there is a group that is a part of those non-resident landowners that has lobbying interests that will use that as like blood in the water. And the next legislative session, and I know this is their plan because they've basically explained this to me, and I've had conversations with the legislators who've worked with them. They're going to go for it all later. Like, well, now that you let people with XYZ acres or gave them this preference, don't you think the right thing to do is just, if they own land here, it's only fair. They're going to go for the whole thing. Now, here's the thing. You go for the whole thing, just open it wide open, we're done. The residents will have nowhere to go. We have 7% timber. We have the least amount of habitat of any Midwestern state and the smallest deer population, and the least amount of public land of any Midwestern state. We have a very tiny, 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 minuscule, fragile resource. You open that up, the residents will have nowhere to go. There is billions of dollars, and I have very extremely wealthy friends who, with a smile on their face, would say, if you get any indication they're going to change, just let me know. I have millions. In total together, it'd be billions ready to be employed in the state of Iowa. I will sell my Illinois farm. I'll sell my Indiana farm. I'll sell my Michigan farm. I'll sell my Kansas farm. I will bring it all to Iowa. If there's a crack, I am ready to go. It will bring billions of dollars to the state of Iowa, and it will be a mad dash to buy this stuff up.
Yeah.
And if, the one case where somebody could be like, is there anywhere that might make sense where I could make the argument? And I could make the argument for any of this. If somebody said, just put on this hat and make this argument, even though, just like being a lawyer or something, I could argue any side of this. But The one place where it actually has some merit would be like, well, what if somebody owns 640 acres or more? What that would do is it would force people to put more ground together instead of section it out, which is good for the environment.
Yeah.
Land segmentation hurts the environment. I'm glad to explain how that works and what it does when we keep parceling things up. It's bad for everything. And that would actually create more big deer if we made it like 640. But what would happen is you'd have really good hunting around those 640 acre parcels. Everybody would want to hunt around there, but it would drive the prices up everywhere else.
Right,
and where you couldn't put 640 acres together, it still would drive the prices up. It would drive the non-resident demand up because they're like, well, they approved 640. Let's fight later for less, and that's all they do.
Right.
So you approve 640, and then they're going to be like, well, let's make it 80 acres. That's the next legislative session.
Right.
So it drives the prices up. So the only benefit there is a few farms around the state where you could put 640 acres together would be good. It'd be good for the environment, but it wouldn't stop there. And that
you
law
don't think
would
it'd be a net positive. You'd think it'd end up being a net negative.
It would be a net positive for 1 year.
Oh, okay.
Maybe 2. And then all of a sudden the law would get switched, and then all the land prices
wave.
everywhere else would get shot through the roof, and then things would start getting segmented up worse, and we'd be, in the long run, just without explaining this, going down the whole rabbit hole, dissecting it all, in the long run, it hurt us.
So when you're in Des Moines fighting for the resource, both the animal and the land, what are you actually doing? Are you speaking in front of committees? Are you meeting with people for lunch and trying to make these arguments to them? What are you actually doing up there?
Yeah, all of the above. And, I'm not just talking hunting up there either. I mean, I'm talking farming. I'm talking water quality. I'm talking conservation projects. I'm fighting for the Forest Reserve Program, and I have to make economic arguments too. And I have to learn how to find middle ground with people. And anything, whether you like it or not, anything in politics has compromise in it. So, I have great relationships with almost every outdoor group that could be farming to conservation to whatever. 15, 20 different groups I have good relationships with. So, and a lot of times I want to help people who have battles that are impacting them, that aren't impacting me, but you win a lot of these battles by having other allies too. So when they need help on something that's a righteous cause or that I believe in, it might not impact me, but I'll go to bat for them. And I want to. If it's right, and all this stuff I battle for doesn't impact me anymore. I'm doing this purely to help other people, purely to help the state, purely to help kids, whether it's environmental, whether it's economic, whether, like I want to go there and fight for, bolstering our rural communities. And they could be like, hey, could you give a 15-minute presentation on how we fix our rural communities in the state of Iowa and explain to me the plight that our rural communities have, these dying towns? I'd be like, let's talk about it. And I could go through all the things that are happening in our rural communities, why some of these towns are having so many obstacles, and exactly how to fix them. Right. And it doesn't mean we can't tweak these or nuance it, but, so the reasons I go up there end up being, it opens up a whole can of worms. But, it started out like, I want to fix the world of hunting. I want to leave it a better place. And it kind of morphed into, I want to fix the state of Iowa. I want to leave it a better place. And now, not fix it, but improve upon it. And it's like, hopefully somebody has a tint of, I want to leave the world a better place in some regard. And where that ends for me, I don't know. I like hunting is, it's a big portion of what I do, and farming is a big portion of what I do, but I have a lot of other issues I love just as much as well. So, cultural issues, society, you name it.
Why do they listen to you? I know there's a little Midwest humility, but why would they would listen to you way more than they would me? Is it just relationships you've had or some status you have in their mind? What's going on there?
Well, if you build the relationships, you build trust. And they're used, when you go to the Capitol or you go to any political event, you meet with politicians, what are they used to dealing with? They're used to dealing with people that are just there for their selfish interests, usually boiled down to money. So I'm meeting with so-and-so today, Johnny, he's the lobbyist for, this farm group or whatever. He wants something from me for his interest. Well, what's his interest? His interest in this. And what does that interest get him? It gets him more money. Mm-hmm. Really, that 90% of the people that are there, it comes back to money. They're there because it betters them financially, their business, their sector in some way. When I go there, there's no benefit to me.
Yeah.
And they see that. They understand that. And when I advocate something, listen, I live in this world, in the farm world, in the hunting world, and I live in the suburbs, so I get to live that life. I understand the dynamics of the suburbs, and I also live in the middle of nowhere in these rural communities every day of the week. I mean, I'm in one of the two places, so I understand all these different things, and I want to see things in both cases improve, and there's nothing for me to gain. I'm not there for my own selfish interest. I'm not there to economically benefit from it. I don't have a business that is looking to benefit from it. I just want to leave this better off. And when you go there and you don't have all these biases, I think it's human nature where people can see through that.
Yeah.
And I think even politicians respect somebody that's there for pure reasons. Yeah. And that's one thing that impressed me with Iowa's politicians on both sides of the aisle. Before I went there, I would have said something like, politicians are all scumbags. They're all sellouts. Some of them are. I got there and went, there's a lot of good ones too. There's a lot of good ones that care.
That's encouraging.
How do you tell the difference?
Relationships.
Yeah.
Seeing how they vote, seeing why they bring in legislation. There was somebody who introduced some awful legislation the last session that was completely selling out the residents of Iowa, and that person just lost their Republican primary election 2 days ago, which is fantastic.
Wow. Yeah.
So people see through that. So their voters saw through that.
Why were they doing that? They were just getting greased by somebody? Or?
Yeah.
Every time Skip has a one-word answer, that means there's a story here that I probably shouldn't share publicly. And I think that's hilarious.
That's one of the nice things about being Skip's friend is after we hit a pause on the recording, we get to hear the story.
Oh man.
What would happen when we've talked about this ever since we first interviewed you, but I think it's worthwhile to visualize it a little bit. If Iowa lost deer hunting, what would that mean for Iowa? I mean, yes, financially, but also culturally.
Great question.
I mean, are you saying lose or lose it like Wisconsin?
Right now in Iowa's history, we just had the first step in our governor's race, right? We had our primaries. And since I've lived in Iowa, this to me has been the most, how do you say it? I don't want to say emotional, but maybe most front of mind time for the average Iowan, I sense, leading into a big state election. And I think a lot of it has to do with 10 years ago, Iowa was still viewed as, hey, there's a lot of positive things going on over in Iowa. Other states, take a look, see what's going on over there. And that's not really the case anymore. We're making the headlines, but for all the wrong reasons.
Even our deer hunting, our harvest is in half versus 15 years ago. It's in half. So our deer hunting is way down, and people go, I want to hunt Iowa. And I'm like, if I'm honest with people, is there still some giant deer here? Yeah. Are we far worse off than we were 10 and 15 years ago? Absolutely. Yeah. We're really hurting, and there's a whole lot of variables there.
Yeah. That's the one thing that I would say we consistently have held on to, that people look to us as there's a shining example. So if we lost that,
think about this. Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, all these states are like, we can never be like Iowa. We didn't used to have deer hunting in Iowa.
Yeah.
This is new to our state.
Yeah.
We had no deer for decades and decades and decades. There was no deer season. In Michigan, people, in a lot of these places, they'll fight over like tradition. Well, we can't change anything because of tradition, which just means I don't have an argument, so I'm just going to throw something out. Like we traditionally didn't even have deer here.
Yeah.
And, so this could go a few different, and I'll answer it very directly. So, we lost, so we didn't have deer hunting. We finally got deer hunting, and all of a sudden, in a blink of an eye, Iowa was known for deer hunting. We got good really fast.
Yeah.
Now, what goes up can come down very quickly, and we have came down very quickly, like degraded fast. And I would say if people want to understand what it looks like when something breaks and a very prominent, well-respected system gets degraded, think of Iowa pheasant hunting. When I was a kid, people used to travel to Iowa to go pheasant hunting, and the stories I would hear were just amazing. I lived in Michigan, and we could actually pheasant hunt in Michigan. And all my buddies from around town would be like, yeah, go to Iowa or South Dakota or whatever, and pheasant hunt. Like, I'm around this state all the time. It's come back a little bit in the last few years, which is great. Fantastic. We've done some things to help, but the whole pheasant hunting dynamic of the state of Iowa died. I mean,
yeah, I wouldn't say
it was ruined.
I would say we have a lot of people that enjoy pheasant hunting here and there, but we don't have a strong pheasant hunting culture in Iowa anymore.
30 years ago, people would say Iowa is a pheasant hunting destination, right?
Yeah.
Very few people would say that. They'd say, no, I go to South Dakota.
Right.
And South Dakota does a far better job managing for pheasants. It's part of their economy, which it could be part of our economy too. Yeah. And if somebody said, where could non-residents best fit in the state of Iowa with all the different, well, we don't have that many options. It's not like we have a ton of big game animals. Pheasant hunting is actually a very good one.
Yeah.
Because pheasants rebound very quickly. If you shoot the males, if you shoot the roosters, it's not problematic unless you literally shot all of them. But you basically can have a replenished population every year if you have the habitat. Yeah. It's sustainable. And South Dakota brings in hundreds of millions of dollars from their pheasant hunting economy. So we really don't have a pheasant hunting economy anymore. I mean, we have a little bit for the enjoyment of the people that live here, which is the most important, over economics.
Where did you hunt in the 90s for pheasants?
Because
CRP, but in Iowa, you were saying like Iowa was a good...
Well, I think there was just more...
pasture?
Native.
We had CRP.
Yeah.
We had far more CRP.
Really?
And just I think more remnant ground. You know what I mean? Maybe it was degraded cow pasture or old hog pastures. But
everybody wants to put a single reason to it. Now, I won't get too caught up on this, but I'll go through it real quick. If you look at farming practices in the last 30 years, 30 years ago, you had weedy corn. You didn't have Roundup Ready corn. Very weedy, okay? True. You controlled your weeds with atrazine, maybe metolachlor, a few other things. You had very weedy corn. In the 80s and 90s, farmers were struggling. They didn't need to tile every last drop because they didn't have money to tile every last drop. They didn't have money to run a bulldozer to take out every last tree.
Yeah.
So they didn't. They left areas that were pretty rough. Like, I'm not making money on my normal farm ground, so I certainly am not going to go doze out that patch of brush over there and not make money on that too and pay to do it.
Yeah.
So
go over there and not make money on that too.
Yeah. So there's all these different things that have changed in 30 years. All of a sudden we have this uber clean farming. Farming got more profitable, and right now farmers are kind of struggling, but super clean farming, fence rows are gone. Every bit you can doze out is dozed out. A lot of people don't want to sign up for CRP, especially in your more fertile regions. The price of ground has gotten obscenely high in the last 10 to 20 years. All things that did not happen in the 80s and 90s. It was a lot of struggling farmers, a lot of fallow ground. And, you know, I could add 10 more things to this, but like fur prices were high back then, you know, and it goes in cycles, but we haven't had good fur prices in 10, 15 years probably. Yeah. You know, South Dakota finds little ways around that. And we're kind of catching up in a way, but South Dakota will put out a raccoon bounty, and people debate whether that works or not. Well, if you do it around nesting season, by definition, it does work, and it's probably a good governmental investment. Now, we handle it slightly different by saying, let's just legalize trapping all year round, and more people are doing it because they care, just so we have balance. Like the predator to nest laying ratios were not balanced. They're not. And people are finally going, if I want to have pheasants, if I want to have turkeys, if I want to have quail, I need to get them in balance. And they're doing it out of responsibility.
That is really interesting. That the hunting economy is just very weird and different to me. But I wanted to bring this up earlier. The trophy hunting for bucks. I think most hunters, it is very rare to meet a hunter that doesn't go through a trophy hunting phase or is in the trophy hunting phase. It's a symbol of status. And we as humans can't get away from status if we wanted to. It's ingrained in our DNA. But I do think that, it's not a thought, it's a question. Can we have an industry where a lot of our friends work, really great people work, that makes money and incentivizes really large bucks and still fight off the people who want to come to Iowa and get those really large bucks? My point is, if the reward is a large buck, how are you going to you can't build a fence high enough to keep all of the regulators or all of the people that have the wealth to come to Iowa and get those big bucks. You couldn't do it if you wanted.
Our regulations are keeping them out. So they're keeping them from buying up every last drop of the land, the little bit of land we have left in the state. And it is because we have older deer here. And, you know, to the people who aren't here all the time, we have a lot less older deer than what we used to. So we're hurting greatly. You know, to have older deer is biologically proven to be beneficial. It retains hunters better. I can get into data on why having a quality balanced deer herd will captivate kids more, why it'll retain more hunters. When you have a lopsided, horribly managed deer herd, kids are not going to stay engaged. And, you know, just one real quick thing, when people use the word trophy hunter, a lot of times they want to use it as kind of like an attack word. You're a trophy hunter. Anybody that shoots a buck and they pass a doe to shoot a buck, I don't care if it's a 6-point, you're a trophy hunter at that point. Now, a trophy hunter, if a trophy hunter means I want a balanced age structure, healthy sex ratios, a reasonable amount of deer, you know, I don't know a person who's a trophy hunter that wants older deer that isn't responsible about shooting does as well. Like, I want it in balance. I want the sex ratios appropriate. I don't want everybody mad that there's 500 deer back here. And we do a very good job on doe management. So somebody say, Iowa's a trophy state. We do an exceptionally good job managing our doe populations, which all these states that are not trophy states are not doing a great job. Missouri, Michigan, southern Wisconsin, southern Minnesota. I mean, they're out of their balances and ratios and age classes all out of whack, and they're not quote unquote trophy states. Even down in Kansas, where I go to Kansas, the ratios are great. They'd be considered a trophy state. It just means they have a balanced age structure. So it's all beneficial when you have things in balance, and that's really what we are. People want to use the word Iowa's a trophy state. We're just a balanced state. We're a common sense state. That's it. And to wrap up real quick, your fine point on what would happen if we lose Iowa hunting. You know, we've already lost basically pheasant hunting, and I think it's imperative that more of these kids and families are out like small game hunting, pheasant, rabbit, maybe quail, squirrel. I mean, it's how I got started hunting, really. It's, you know, on my own, but
I think that's a good point.
I think the small game hunting is critical. And if we lose deer hunting, here's the one point I want to make. You know, it really, if you trace all of it out with property values and the whole economics, probably realistically about $1 billion economy. To the state of Iowa, that's huge. Now, Iowa has a very big problem with the youth leaving this state, and we have a staggered old population. Hunting is one of the few activities. You can't go snow ski. You don't go to the beach. You don't go surfing. You don't go deep sea fishing.
Our lakes are closed for the E. coli.
Yeah, so compared to any other state, like I grew up on the Great Lakes, there's millions of different things I could do. We don't have that in Iowa. I mean, I love this state. I love it. There's fantastic things to do, and hunting is a big component of that. But let's just be honest. For these kids, there's a whole lot of activities we don't have in Iowa that other states do. So,
that's a great
you know, to keep a good, well-balanced, quality hunting, fishing, small game, big game, just a balance and a good environment where people can go out and have a quality experience outdoors is critical to these kids in this state. And it will keep more kids here if we have a quality resource, whatever the game is, whatever fisheries are. I mean, a good environment with a lot of outdoor activities is the best thing a state can possibly have, and we need to protect that, and we also need to build upon that. That's one component on how we're going to keep these kids staying in Iowa.
Yeah. I asked one of the gubernatorial candidates that at a live event that I was at of theirs. I said, "Hey, young people are leaving, and there's two reasons: young families, young adults, young people move to a place. It's economic reason or natural resources.
Yep.
We're losing both of them. So what do we do?" And they didn't have a good answer.
They didn't have a good answer?
No,
These are governor candidates? Okay. There's answers for this.
Now, it was a little early in the campaign, right? So
but I'm not campaigning, and I have answers for that. So that's a little concerning to hear that. I mean, we need to fix these rural towns. We need to... I mean, the rural towns can be fixed, and most of our state is rural. So,
how?
Okay, very succinctly, there'd be several things. I go to these rural towns. One, we need to have a lot more law enforcement presence, which is not that much in these towns. And I talk to a lot of people pretty high up in law enforcement. Like, do you realize how easy it would be for me to have one undercover agent go to these small towns and go buy drugs and bust and run up the pipeline, basically to cartel level and clean these towns up? It'd be quite easy. I mean,
why don't we do that?
We should be doing that. Like 20 to 40 more undercover officers that go into these small towns and run undercover operations to clean up the drugs. So what business wants to come to a town that's full of drugs? Well, none. Drugs and crime. That's actually fairly simple to clean up. I'm not saying it's like easy, but there's a process to do it. Okay. And then all these, we need to shift some of these tax incentives, some of these things that, like, we'll say, hey, data center, we're going to give you a tax break to do that. And I'm not necessarily opposed to that. I mean, we need to probably weigh it out a lot more stringently than what we are.
Be careful what you say. That's a very charged thing we have found on our reels.
But, and I won't get too far into the weeds with this, but there's different tax incentives cities, municipalities, counties can give. And there's some towns down here that do a very good job with giving small businesses tax breaks and tax abatements, stuff like that. Yeah. And they want to attract small businesses. So there's two towns out there, and I won't name them so I don't get some folks in trouble because I know the people who are involved in the government both. But one of them is very business friendly. Two little towns, and they give tax incentives. They give a tax abatement to a small business that, maybe 100 employees, stuff like that. Yeah. They manufacture some things. There's another town about 20 miles away that's led by people who won't give anything. They won't be flexible with businesses that want to move in. Yeah. They won't give any room to negotiate on taxes. So some of these buildings that, like manufacturing buildings, have stayed vacant and the businesses have left. So we need to bring those people back with incentives, tax incentives, with investment. And some of that can be government-driven investment. Sorry, it's just part of how our system works, and the cities are getting a lot of it. And we need to fix the crime in some of these neighborhoods and get the drugs out. I mean, every one of these towns, I'm in these small towns every day of the week across this state, and they're infested with drugs. We can fix that. And when you improve the economic situation of the rural towns, the drugs are lessened because people actually have things to do. So these things are far more intertwined than anybody would understand.
So I want to poke at that. So I live in Knoxville. Knoxville is actually, I just saw a reel on Barn Talk where they were talking about this, maybe with Zach Lane, about how, there's usually in a small
Knoxville
town,
ranks in the top 40 Knoxvilles in the United States, doesn't it?
It's top 6.
Top 6 what?
Oh, I always mess with Nick because he loves Knoxville. I say Knoxville ranks within the top 40 Knoxvilles in the United States.
Oh.
Well, so maybe you have an idea for me, Skip, but our town
I
is...
know Knoxville.
I love
I'm
Knoxville.
in Knoxville all the time.
So
That's
my
a good
wife and I,
town.
we have a coffee shop in Knoxville. We live downstairs, and we have like 1 block away that old Family Video in Knoxville.
Yeah.
So here's the deal with that Family Video. Some guy, some LL corporation owns it on the East Coast, and they have greatly inflated the value of it because the bank that they have it registered on their balance sheet isn't going to come out to Knoxville, Iowa and actually look at this building. And so they can borrow against it to do real estate on the East Coast, or real as in like higher dollar real estate. But it sits empty in the middle of our town, and I don't know what to do about it.
Family Video?
That old Family
Why
Video?
don't you start it back up? Rent DVDs and VHS tapes.
Yeah.
Dude, I've been
Be
thinking
kind,
about
rewind.
I've
Okay.
been thinking about what kind of business we could put there. But most of these small towns are reliant on some sort of company that came in and is self-sufficient. So you could talk about 3M. I wouldn't put 3M in. I think it's helpful for the economics, although it's got a lot of cons to it. But it's helpful for the economics because they do pour out, a lot of $50,000 and $60,000 salaries into the town. But more like Weiler, Weiler out of
Yep.
3M. So they employ a bunch of people. They put the Weiler Foundation is like the reason our hospital is as good as it is. There's like a bunch of stuff that Weiler is doing, and I've been racking my brain on what is. I love the plumbers. I love the small restaurants. I mean, we have a coffee shop. But those are all like self-sufficient small town things. I've really been trying to think, what can our town provide? Not for the globe, like,
No,
transistors,
small businesses,
but
10
regional.
to 100 people, 100 employees.
Yeah, what could people from all across Iowa know Knoxville for? And racing is part of it, but racing's so seasonal. It's tough. A lot of our city sits empty waiting for race season.
Yep.
So I don't know.
So there's I could talk about this for an hour on how to bring the small businesses to these rural towns, what types of small businesses should be here. And there's a lot of rural towns that are doing this, that are very successful because of it. And it's what's keeping a lot of these small towns afloat, along with farming, education, the communities, and so on. But another big component that we can't miss is like, if we improve the habitat of our state and we have more game, like pheasant hunting, which is actually a very good economic driver to bring into these communities. Deer hunting, I would say, we can't take any more on. We've got all the pressure we need. Right. But the deer hunting by residents has really improved these rural communities. It's made a huge impact on the rural communities. Yeah. Resident deer hunters that are here 365 days a year, that live here 365 days a year, pay the property tax, fill up their gas, all year round. We don't need non-residents for that. But if we had more deer, more small game hunting, like brought back the pheasants, and we had more CRP, you could bolster these towns. It'd be a big chunk of the pie where people would travel there or want to own land there. And when you bring in hunters, they spend money. So, and pheasants would be a great place. That'd be one prong of.
Well, this is much further out, but Nick talks about often that until prairie becomes an everyday item for people in some way, it's just not gonna be adopted in large scale again in Iowa. And I think there's some truth to that for sure. I think he's right. And I think that Nick's talking about it from a tangible product that's in your kitchen cabinet, right? If we could just discover a use that is an everyday item,
or
but
even if Prairie was a household name,
I think the most obvious way is through hunting. I mean, at one time, this state was a bison and elk and black bear hunting paradise, and now we're never going back to that, all the way. But if we could expand in a magnitude or two the amount of habitat, not just prairie, but also make our forests healthier and have wetlands where there should be wetlands and things like that.
A lot of companies talk about conservation, but I want to tell you about a company that actually puts their money where their mouth is. birdhuntersupply.com is a great company. I know the owner, Joe. He's a great dude. We've had the privilege of working with him, and let's just say he really puts his money where his mouth is. A large percentage of his profits from Bird Hunter Supply go to a conservation organization of your choice at checkout. So your purchase actually puts money towards conservation, and it's not just a roundup. It's not just asking you to donate on top of your purchase. This is included with your purchase. This man is running his very own small business version of Pittman Robertson, except without all the government stuff. I'm a big fan of that. So whether you're buying hunting apparel, decoys, dog training gear, you are actually going to be giving back to conservation. That is my friend Joe at birdhuntersupply.com. We love that company. We love what they have going on. Oh, and they do a really great job with their website. Makes it very easy. birdhuntersupply.com.
I think that we would only see those, not to the size of our whitetail culture. Definitely not that. But it's kind of like when I like to go out to Nebraska to hunt mule deer. It's because that they have mule deer. You know what I mean? That just having that local option creates another industry in of itself. And so there's these tiny little towns in western Nebraska that have nobody show up for anything except for the fact that they have mule deer out there. And I think there's a way that hunting can help in that way too.
100%. So you could literally solve 5 issues by saying we are going to take our most vulnerable ground around the state of Iowa and take 1% of our overall landscape that is erodible, vulnerable, and plant it to native grasses, prairies, trees, stuff like that. 1% would change the dynamics of our whole state significantly.
Yeah. I think especially in waterfowl. I mean, there's no reason we aren't a waterfowl paradise. We're in between the Mississippi River and the Missouri River.
Well, there's a reason we aren't a waterfowl paradise because we've drained and tiled every last wetland and marsh and swamp in the state of Iowa. We've wiped our wetlands out. So, and I'm all for balance. What I'm saying is, you look at, there's 2.8 million acres of timber. If we added 1% more timber or CRP or some combination of that, would be a huge benefit. And what I'm saying is, do it on the most vulnerable soils. And a lot of these rural communities, like down here, they're in the worst soil regions of the state with erodible ground, not productive region.
The Highway 2 corridor kind of.
Yeah, the production value, the farmers are barely hanging on, even in good years, because we're not raising these huge crops like, the very north. And you're not going to take northern Iowa and be like, hey, sign up for CRP for $250 an acre. Everybody's going to laugh. I mean, you're not going to change that. But the most vulnerable parts of the state, which are economically suppressed, like the most rural counties actually have the least fertile soils and the most vulnerable soils. So if we put some money and some policy in place where we did get the programs right to add more habitat, take our most vulnerable soils out, and then there's the minor little impacts there too, like, it's a global market now, but like our oversupply of corn and beans, which has driven prices down, if we can take some of our vulnerable ground out of production, if we did that across the whole country, probably raise grain price. That'd be a countrywide pursuit. But if we took our most vulnerable ground, like even out west where they have pivots and they're draining the aquifers, and we said, hey, we're going to convert that into prairies again, or grew things that were more drought tolerant, like sorghum and milo and stuff like that, we could actually increase the prices of our grain markets here.
Yeah, sometimes nature does that for us. It's called a derecho, where I think, what was it, 2019 or 2020? I can't remember the year it was. there was that terrible derecho show in August, and I think it wiped out 40% of the state's corn. Corn prices boomed that following fall.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest drought years is when I farm, and it's like when we have a horrible drought across the whole Midwest, prices are up, and everybody gets all excited that prices are up, and then they harvest their fields in some of the rough regions. Like, the prices are up, but I didn't really grow much.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like people don't understand that, like, the trade markets and futures are dialed in to a science. They've allotted how much they've already allotted. Not technically, this isn't on a piece of paper, but it's in how we do futures math, the salaries of the people who do the work. And fun fact, farmers are the ones doing the work. So you think, basically you're hoping to get lucky and be on the margins of, you're hoping that everybody else got wiped out by a deratio. So the prices are really high. You're the one person that didn't get hit, and those are not good odds. So as a farmer, what your average salary across farmers is supposed to be per acre or whatever, or per bushel of corn, that margin's kind of decided already, by the future sales and people trading on the Chicago Trade Board.
I want to do kind of a hard pivot here, but it's related to what we're talking about, and it's something you've been dealing with. And I sense from what you've posted and conversations I've had with you and conversations I've had with some of the other guys in this neighborhood that are mutual friends of ours, poaching is it's always been around, of course, but it seems to be
huge issue.
It seems to be growing.
It's growing.
First,
people don't realize it.
And you've had to interact with some poachers.
Oh yeah.
And
what are those?
What is? I don't understand the motivation. I could maybe see it for sheds, because you could theoretically, I sense those guys aren't doing it so much because I really want to find a big shed. It's because they want a quick turnaround and sell them, because there's a pretty big antler market. But like shooting a big buck, you would have to keep that under such wraps that you can't really show it off. And maybe they're just dumb. Maybe that's just the common denominator in every case is low IQ of poachers. But you can't really celebrate the trophy value. You didn't earn it in an honest way. Usually you have to shoot it in the dark with a thermal scope, or you have to,
that's what they're doing.
Right. And obviously you're trespassing.
Yep.
And
can you even bring it to the taxidermist?
Well, you can. What a lot of, I would say half the poaching here, half is done by people that travel here from out of state, October, November, maybe December. They get a motel room. You'll never know they're there. They go out at night. When you're back in your house, you left your farm, you're back home, they're out all night. They're like vampires. You don't see them. You don't know they're there. A lot of times these guys...
What's their motivation? I mean, what are they after?
So if they're from out of state, they bring it back home and said, hey, I took a hunting trip to Iowa, and nobody asks them, like, well, don't you have to draw a tag there? And then they can show it to their buddies back home. Some of them sell them. We busted a group last year that was selling them.
So what is their justification when you're like, what are you doing here? They're just like, oh, I want to be here.
It's the same thing. Like if you've watched any crime show where somebody gets in trouble for anything, I mean, they always have some sob story, excuse story. Nobody's like, yeah, I'm a scumbag, and
I'd almost have respect for them if they did. Hey, look, dude, I'm just a scumbag.
Everybody is always, there's some stupid reason, and they weren't doing this, and it's a misunderstanding, and they just made a bad choice, and they're sorry about it, or you go down the list, and it's always the same thing, which is why people always need to prosecute them, but. It's happening more and more. A lot of people don't realize how much it's going on, how much it's happening. And it's like, well, how much are the COs busting? Well, the COs are covering 2 counties per guy. Right. And they have families, they have lives. The good ones are out at night and dealing with some stuff that isn't the most ideal of ours. Some of them aren't doing that. We need more that are.
It's a dangerous job. I mean, you're confronting criminals who are armed.
and they're very hard to catch. I mean, it is thermals with suppressors or crossbows. I mean, the amount of deer we've lost, like crossbow bolts by the road, crossbow bolts in a deer by the road, rifle holes.
Are they just cutting the heads off and getting out of there real quick?
A lot of them now. So, I mean, I have so much information on what goes on here. It makes me sick. But a lot of them now will go literally run out of the vehicle or circle back, run out of the vehicle and take the whole deer out. So they leave no evidence. So it's like, oh, I never saw a deer with their heads cut off. They're taking the whole thing out.
Wow.
Most of them are doing that. And, you know, there's going to be, I strongly predict with some reason behind it, there's going to be some more technology and some more law enforcement tools put in place. I mean, even my farm, it's prevalent. I would say I lose a handful every year. You know, half a dozen get poached every year right around here, at least on average. Some years are worse than others. It's never zero.
Yeah.
And any neighborhood I've been in Iowa, there's poaching that goes on. It's everywhere.
Where's the worst region of poaching that you know of in the state?
Anywhere there's really good farms, the out-of-state guys target it. And then you've got the locals wherever they might be. But the out-of-state guys poach the good areas.
I didn't realize it was so organized. I thought it was just like 20-year-old some guys that are angry they can't have land, and big old Skip, he's got a bunch of land, so I'm going to go up there and he won't miss it anyway. That's what I thought it was. But you're saying it's like, nah, just scumbags coming from another state.
Yeah.
Doing their scumbag
What
thing.
What states are they usually coming from?
We chased a guy. I passed this information on. They were from Louisiana.
Oh.
They're from all over, though. We busted groups from Wisconsin. We busted one local group. I mean,
what are those? Because you're not going to like run up on them. Everyone's holding guns, right?
I will.
So what do? You just tear in with your truck and, hey, what are you doing? Or what? Call the cops before you get there? Or?
Yeah.
No comment.
I'm not going to not confront. I'm just not.
Yeah.
And could people do crazy stuff? Sure. But I'm not going to just walk away. I'm going to deal with it. And now, you know, we've got cameras that take photos of license plates and every vehicle that's on the road. So if something goes down, we at least know who was there. The neighbors are getting better on patrolling at night. We're screening in every bit of road, and this is going on all over the place.
Man, that's so stupid. How many
It's
resources
ridiculous.
are having to go
It's ridiculous.
to make sure a negative thing doesn't happen?
And-
not adding to positive.
And
a
anybody
positive
with
things.
anybody that I know that actually has the rare, like, mega giant deer, I mean, 9 out of 10 of them that I can think of, like, probably why it happens, but they usually live like in the center of their farm, not by the road in the middle of, you know, just a secluded spot. Maybe because a lot of them have got, you know, poached or whatever. They just figure out to go deeper. So I would say most of the poachers aren't shooting absolute behemoths. I mean, and there isn't that many behemoths to shoot. Even in the best areas, there's not as many as what they think. They end up shooting one, you know, like 4-year-olds and 3-year-olds and maybe a 5-year-old. And they probably, I don't know, they probably are disappointed. Like, I thought we'd poach bigger bucks than this.
Yeah.
And it's just sad. And it's like, dude, just go to a high fence, pay somebody. You know, a cull buck on a high fence is probably like 200-inch deers, like probably a cull buck can send some of these high fences.
Yeah,
pay somebody $5,000 and tell your buddies you got it. You know.
Yeah, that's a great point, because again, if you strip away the sportsmanship, the fair chase side of deer hunting, I mean, how many deer, if you just decided to go out today before we got here with any weapon you wanted, I mean, do you think you could have shot more than one deer before we got here this afternoon?
For sure. Like, we went out,
but that does nothing for you.
No, it's ridiculous.
There's no fair chase to it.
I went out with some guys coyote hunting with really good thermals and night vision, doing it legally.
Yeah.
And at the end of the night, we all sat there and said, how many bucks could we have shot tonight? 50?
Yeah.
I mean, we went all over the place.
Yeah.
We could have shot 50.
And it would have done nothing for you.
Right.
And
these things are defenseless. Like they're not alert to humans. It's scary. It's scary how lethal that is.
Yeah.
But it's like, why? And even back in the day, you know, like I remember being with my brothers in Van Buren County, driving to a farm, and this giant buck goes in front of our vehicle. I still remember him vividly because we watched him for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
He stood in front of us. We had a doe in the ditch. That deer was, I don't know, it wasn't less than 230, 240, 250, just a mega insane mammoth like 20 years ago. And I mean, I could have just grabbed my bow, been like, he's in the headlights, and shot him. It's like, why? Yeah. Why? So, and I understand even the temptation to go, oh man, I could get a giant right now, but I would implore anybody, you will regret that for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
You'll look at that and be like,
it'll
why?
mean nothing to you.
It does nothing. And you're not a hunter at this point. You're just a thief. You're just a scumbag. That is not hunters. Poaching is very different than hunting. I have no respect for those people. They need to be prosecuted, shamed, discouraged. Yeah, and we need more technology to deal with them, and that is coming out.
You've been vocal, especially this last shed season, because the shed poaching specifically has gotten so rampant.
Yeah,
that you want to put. Well, our mutual friend Steve Hansen got hammered by a poacher this spring. I think it was right before he was going to take his niece and nephew out, if I remember correctly.
So kids were going to go.
Yeah,
it's like saying, hey, the neighbor kids, their parents just put out a bunch of Easter eggs.
Yeah.
The kids are going to eat. Let's sneak in there and take all the Easter eggs.
Yeah. It's
what in the heck?
Right. It's insane. But you have been talking with legislators about increasing the penalty to be more of a deterrent for
because
for
it is not much different than going into your vehicle and taking stuff out of your vehicle, ripping stuff out of your home, ripping off your jewelry.
Sure. What is the punishment? Because isn't there a trespassing?
The trespassing fine is significant. It's more than it was. We probably need to get it raised. And what we definitely need is two things. We need way higher fines and penalties for repeat offenders. Like your second time, like the first time needs to be very impactful. The second time, like ridiculously harsh penalties and fines because you're not learning your lesson.
Yeah.
And it is a real problem. We need a huge deterrence there. And the other thing we need, if you are traveling to my state for the sole purpose of stealing, poaching, robbing our state, you are never coming back. You are not, and well, poachers don't buy hunting licenses. A lot of them actually do. And just let it be known, you come to my state to poach, steal, or anything, you are not buying a hunting license in this state ever again.
Yeah.
That's what needs to happen. A resident, maybe strike two. You know, you get caught egregiously poaching multiple times. It needs to be very harsh. And it's very different than like, hey, I got a ticket because I didn't wear my blaze orange. You know, I bought the wrong license. You know, stuff that's like, you know, there's these categories of things that people get ticketed for. It's like, yeah, okay, pay your fine, learn your lesson, not a great choice. But then there's the egregious ones. Like I shot a buck out a truck window. I'm shooting them at night. I'm sneaking into farms and robbing them blind. We need far more egregious penalties for that as a major deterrent and enforcement so these people take it seriously, because this is fundamentally a $1 billion economy that they're stealing. It's a fragile, very limited resource that the residents that own this resource should be able to enjoy. And you know, and they're raping and pillaging it, and the consequences need to be vastly more stringent. And you know, what the politicians are understanding is like, you know, they're selling these things for thousands of dollars in some cases, tens of thousands. You know, that one buck just sold for $1 million for those sheds, whatever it was. I mean, when the politicians understand
the general,
that deer and antlers have value, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. That's how wildlife is protected.
Are you aware of a state that has a penalty for poaching that you are most in favor of?
Iowa actually is pretty good. We need a little bit different language. When you get over a certain size of deer, it's like a $17,000 fine or 16 or something. But a lot of times the judges will, or the DAs will plea it down. And we need to have more teeth in the law that make it like mandatory fines, mandatory minimums, and where this stuff can't get plead down. Like, I know the law says if it's this, but we'll just say it was basically the equivalent of poaching a doe. We just need it where you have to give sentences accordingly.
A few years ago, there was a push to lower the fine.
Ridiculous.
For poaching in Iowa, for poaching a deer in Iowa.
Probably backed by Farm Bureau because they want to devalue wildlife and devalue deer.
So that was the motivation behind it?
Probably, yes. Now, there was one politician that did it because his buddies got in trouble poaching and got a bunch of fines, and they were farmers, and they whined about it, that they got a bunch of fines for shooting those rats. And that's how he viewed it, though. He wanted to put, they looked at wildlife as a net negative.
Yeah.
They're not a net negative. It's a huge asset to our state. It's a huge asset economically.
Yeah.
So,
and it's not something they own the rights to.
Right. The state
held in the
owns
public
it.
trust. Yeah.
The state owns it in a trust, and the smartest thing our DNR ever did was finally do an economic study to put a value on what Iowa's deer hunting economy is, and just the basics like hunting licenses, general hunting supplies, this, that, was $180 million. The second you started factoring in, property values, this guy bought a tractor, he bought a UTV, we get more revenue from taxes because the property values have gone up. You look at what some of these property values, which is good and bad, but you look at without deer, what these property values would plummet it. So really our deer hunting economy is probably closer to about $1 billion a year. So don't destroy $1 billion economy.
Yeah.
And that's where I fight Farm Bureau, where they want to kill every last deer. They want everyone dead.
Yeah.
The old timers at Farm Bureau. Like you guys, the deer do $5.2 million worth of corn damage a year statewide. With soybeans, it's probably just under $10 million statewide. I would argue some of that's coons. A lot of it's coons, actually. And some of it's turkeys, but fine, give it all to deer. Me as a farmer, I'm part of that group, we have a $12 billion corn crop.
Yeah.
We don't need to kill all the deer, destroy a $1 billion hunting economy to save $5.2 million in crop damage on a $12 billion crop, and destroy all the blessings that hunting gives to these families, kids, the meat it provides.
Yeah. Well, something that I think doesn't get mentioned, and it applies to you, and other mutual friends of ours. There's several people that I can think of who have, and this traces back to when we were talking about the resident side of this, the non-resident versus resident. There's successful people who have switched their residency to Iowa, bought land here, live here, and not only so in other words, you're attracting good people into your state, and I think all of those people employ other people as a part of their project for better deer hunting.
Here's the dirty little secret that is great. So for every non-resident that wants to change our laws so they can live in another state and hunt here, we have 2 or 3 that actually move here to say, no, I'm actually just going to move here.
Yeah.
And when they move here...
You're one of them.
Yeah, I'm one of them 25 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm 25 years ago. And when they move here, now they pay state income taxes.
Yep.
They pay sales tax 365 days a year.
Yep.
They pay the same property taxes. They're filling up their truck 365 days a year. They're employing people.
Yep.
Yeah.
These are people generally.
They come to our coffee shop. Actually, there's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
That moved here for whitetail.
And a lot of them are like small business owners. A lot of them.
Well, 2 of our good friends at Hoxie do a ton of work for you. That's how we met them.
So, states, whether you like it or not, states want to import good people who contribute, people who are economically viable, people with ambition, down the list, versus let's import a bunch of welfare recipients that don't want to work. I mean, I'm not knocking that group, but that's not what most states want. They want people who are productive members of society that are going to better things. And when people move here, and like the amount of businesses I deal with that I spend my money at, the amount of people employed, and I mean,
we're very grateful for it. Yeah.
So it's great when those people move here and they're productive members, and they're actually net contributors to the system. They're not leeching off the system.
In rural Iowa.
In rural Iowa. That's also how you fix these rural towns.
Yeah, you go to Northern California and you have 100 people that move in with $150,000 salaries. When no needle is moved. Yep. You get 5 people with $60,000 salaries and move into a small town, even like Knoxville with 8,000 people. It's like, oh, that made a difference.
Huge. The hunters have actually, the resident hunters have enhanced these rural communities at significant levels.
Yeah.
The mechanic shops I go to, the tractor shops, the co-ops, the seed stores, you guys, the biggest customers, almost all these small businesses that I deal with, even the builders, they're like the hunters.
Yeah.
The resident hunters are bolstering our business. They spend money like they're the best customers by far.
Right. And that's why prosecuting poaching matters.
Yeah, and keeping a quality resource, keeping the fragile resource we have good and actually making it better, which we need to do, and we need to improve upon, our deer herd and everything else. I mean,
well, it's interesting because one deer, let's say one deer, they figure out economically it's worth 160-inch buck. Let's say they find out it's worth $20,000. It's not worth. So you could find them $20,000, but here's the deal. That deer, it's not like buying a UTV. It's like 100,000 people paying $1 for a raffle at the UTV.
Yeah.
So one deer is not worth whatever amount of money to the community you could put on it. It's worth all those raffle tickets. And those raffle tickets are cups of coffee at the local coffee store, people filling up their gas at Casey's, people pay it or taking their kid to a private school, or their kids are in sports and they're donating to whatever booster club. Those are all the little raffle tickets that come from resident hunters that make the whitetail worth way more than the $20,000. But if all of them go away, or there's a tangible difference in bucks that people are really desiring, then all those raffle tickets go away. So let's say we got rid of all the bucks and maybe some odd $1 million worth of, if you attributed a value to, you got rid of all the trophy bucks, all the ones that people are willing to move for. But when you add up all the little raffle tickets that they spent to be here in Iowa while they were here in Iowa, or they moved here in Iowa, and all the stuff they're saying, the bucks are worth $1 billion.
Well, $43,000 for a chance at an Iowa buck is what that's
what the governor's tag went for this year,
which is a great thing. I mean, it goes to charity, goes to conservation in Iowa. It's very limited, very small amount. It's a great thing. $43,000 for a chance to shoot an Iowa buck. For sure, all of these tags bought by people who live in states with more whitetail, more habitat, the same species, they have whitetail deer. Why are they can go to their home state, don't have to travel, probably buy a tag for $20, $50, something like that. But they leave their own state with more deer, more habitat, to spend $43,000 to have a chance to hunt the same exact animal here.
Yeah,
man,
it just happens to be managed. It's far superior.
It just can't be undersold. Okay, we can't leave without talking a little land with you, Skip. So we got to be careful here. People hate the data center conversation, but it'd be irresponsible to not talk about it. And I perceive that this is going to affect land value in isolated cases.
Sure.
Right. But what do you see coming? What are the pitfalls that you fear? What are maybe some of the positives, if there's any that you can think of that could come from this? And do you perceive a long-term risk of these just being a big empty pile of concrete 20 years from now that is an eyesore for everyone?
Could be. I wouldn't say like my expertise, like data center, like, well, we think AI is a bit, it's not going to do what we think it is. A lot of these places are going to, now there's, 50% of the data center applications have been withdrawn because they don't think it's going to be what they had forecasted to be. What happens with it, I don't know. I mean, I see a sliver as I drive up north of here, it's maybe 50 acres or something.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that I've seen, it's like 50 acres here, 100 acres there. And then I go, okay, so how much are we talking? It sounds like to me, or what I see, since I travel across most of the state, is just little slivers here and there. So my brain just goes to the big picture, like, how about the 99.9999% of the other land,
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not saying I'm dismissive of the data centers, don't care about them. I do, looking at things like, can they generate their own electricity so they're not a burden on the grid, all these other things, and I know some people who now they want just these crazy prices for their land, and because a data center could come here.
Do you think that's all going to fall apart, those inflated land values?
So because of data centers, if I wanted to know the answer to that question, I would be like, I'm going to phone a friend. Let's call Elon Musk a minute and just have a genuine phone call with Elon. Say, Elon, give me the scoop. Are these data centers going to keep going like this, or is this going to blow up in our faces? And he's going to have a far better answer to that than I would.
Sure.
I can talk. I'm probably far. So that's a nice thing about just having basic understandings of things like that. Like, I would reach out to other people who are more, I don't pay attention to technology and this and that. Now, my expertise would probably be more geared towards the 99.9999% of the other land that isn't a data center. And how can we make that better?
Yeah.
Like, let's pass IWILL. And both governor candidates better say, yeah, I want to pass IWILL. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's on the list of things to ask them when they're...
They both better be for
Yeah.
it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I really like Taylor Riggins' argument. He's like, we can't agree on the last 3/8 of the penny of where it's going to go. So let's just get rid of it. We'll just do 5/8 of the penny and call her good.
Yeah.
But everyone in government wants their slice of the pie. And so what's interesting with data centers specifically is one of the biggest build outs in the United States that's ever happened is the AI build out. Anytime a country ever has spent over 3% of its GDP on one specific build out, it has to some degree crashed or reset the economy. Here's the biggest difference between AI and all the other times. The other times would include railroads, highways, the internet build out with the fiber optics, the manufacturing for cars. These all had like a recession afterwards. Difference was those factories or cars, those highways, those railroads worked for 30 to 50 years. The data centers that we're building, the shells will last for decades, but the actual compute that costs the most money, servers that are sitting there, those GPUs, 5 to 7-ish years. And so there was a recession on all the other ones. And then, but after a while we said, well, we're still using the highways. This is good. We kind of got over the recession and now we've got highways for decades and decades. Not going to be the case with AI. Now, the best argument I heard, and this is scary, just as scary as it is whatever these people were saying was a good thing, was that robots are going to be really good at what they do. And I've heard people who've gone to the robot factories and are like, you're going to forget that Musk even had Tesla. Like, no one will remember him for that because these robots are so good. So the whole point is like, specifically for the economy, I think there's a lot to be said about the human condition on all this stuff, but specifically for the economy, I think it definitely falls on its face a little bit. Even the internet did. And then it would probably pick back up after that. But the data centers themselves, people are arguing about energy and water use. right? And is it polluting the water and stuff like that?
Yeah,
But
those
are the
would
big
be
things.
the things I'm interested in, you know. And I'm interested in whether it would hurt the economy as well. But I mean, you know, I grew up in Michigan where you trace back Michigan into the 50s and 60s and look at Detroit. It was a booming, built up, expanding, robust, working
a point of
population
pride
people,
for America.
turned into a rotting corpse where you can basically get houses for free at one point.
Yeah. You can buy blocks, whole blocks at a time.
Yeah.
They're listed,
Just complete ruination. So,
yeah.
I don't have the answer to that one.
I'm curious to see how the data centers play out and what people are going to do about it, because I do think that the people can rise up and there can be a NIMBY. I think we can definitely do that.
Not in my backyard is for if you're listening, you're not sure what he's about.
I mean, we saw it here in Iowa here recently with a shooting range in Warren County. I don't know. Yeah, that was all. That was like a whole ordeal, and so we can do that, but we also have to remember we're trying to NIMBY the most powerful humans in the world. You know, is who would be we're trying to go up against. So we really have to be able to fight from a state level. We have to be able to. We can't just have small groups of people complaining about it on social media if you don't want the data center. Now, let's say your county's flat broke and you've got nothing, nobody wants to live here, and a data center comes in and says, we'll give you $10 million a year, you know, then it's like, I don't know. But I also think it's a little silly to complain about data centers on social media because, well, all of social media lives on data centers.
Anything complaining on social media is pretty much a waste of time.
True. Yeah, that's true. And man, it doesn't matter what you post. Your comment section is filled. It is filled with stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, here's another one for you, Skip. This is even more current. So we keep hearing about fuel prices, fertilizer prices in relation to everything going on in the Strait of Hormuz.
Right.
How do you see that playing out with farming? You know, this coming fall, we'll say, going into this harvest and maybe into next year's planting season. And I mean, from what of course, how do you know how do you know it's true anymore? But it does seem in the news that peace talks are intensifying. So let's assume we get let's assume a treaty, a peace treaty is signed by January 1. Do you think Iowa farming is impacted in any significant way by this harvest and by next year's planting season? Or
for next year, it could be. This year's already kind of in the bag as far as like your planting, your fertilization was done long ago.
Right.
So these prices were after the most spending occurred. I mean, you know, a global conflict like this, and I read a lot of comments and I watch a lot of different sides in the news on these things too. And it's like, I see so much noise where one group has a political motive to make all these comments or whatever, or they spin it this way. And there's so many things going on behind the scenes that we aren't privy to, we aren't aware of. I really do think it will get resolved. I could be dead wrong on this, but I think it will get resolved. And I think gas prices will come down substantially. That's just my gut belief. And I do believe that. I could be dead wrong. Now, you know, and I'm not going to worry about things I can't control, though, too, because I can't control that.
Right.
So I don't worry about it. Now, what I would like it to do is different than worrying about it, too. Clearly, I'd like prices to come down. Clearly, I'd like there to be peace with, you know, real solutions to that big problem. Where it could be interesting if I just want to put like a little, who knows what the heck could happen, but like, hey, we get some things straightened out for now, prices come down, then we have the midterms. Midterms are done. Hey, let's go clean them up. Let's go clean their clock. That's where, if I had to guess, like if things were going to get kinetic and get hot again, that'd be my guess.
It'd be after midterms.
Yeah. After the midterms, they bomb the living daylights out of them. I'm not saying we should or shouldn't or this or that, but that just be my wild guess, and that's out on a tangent.
What would get you concerned as far as the implications for farming? Like if it stretched out for a few more years, the strait stays shut for during those next few years. I mean, at what point do you think we start having farmers saying, "Holy cow, diesel is now such an input cost"? Maybe even shortage of diesel.
I don't think, with how many different countries in this world with different influences and different seats at the table, that they're going to allow it to drag out that long. Like, hey, we're going to let diesel be at the equivalent of $8 for 2 more years. There's too many power pieces, people with influence that are going to say, no, this isn't going to happen. That I just don't see. I could be dead wrong on that.
You know what I found really interesting is I have a friend who builds septic tanks, and a huge part of his business is that delivery fee, right? Because they're giant, they weigh a ton. I mean, literally, they weigh tons, and so he spends a lot of fuel getting them to and from places. And actually, that's why there's no like centralized septic tank building company. There's a lot of small septic tank building companies.
Interesting.
Because
the
shipping,
transport
fees. Yeah, logistics is
it's a big awkward item.
And I asked him, I said, "Are you worried about, these fuel prices, blah, blah, blah?" He's like, "No, I mean, I got a business. You just pass it on to the customer." But what's interesting is there's an industry that can't pass it on to the customer, and that is farmers. They can't do that. Their price is set, and their margins are so thin already. So traditional businesses have much better margins than the person in charge of the row crop farm.
So we've dealt with high prices for like 90 days now. If anybody out here can't buckle up for 90 or 60 days, you're probably living past your means. And I understand there's people that are like, dude, I'm just in a really tough spot, and whatever. I got a lot of things going on where I'm just treading water barely, and I empathize for those people. But farmers, if you're running a business, you need to be able to tread. Honestly, I think most farmers should be able to tread like 2 or 3 years. I mean, that's historically going back to any farming. You might have 2 really good years.
Yeah.
And I mean, farmers around here, around the whole state, will be like, the man doesn't let you make money for more than about 2 or 3 years. The equipment manufacturers, the fertilizer, they catch up. And then you have 3 bad years, and maybe you have a year you broke even. Maybe you have a few years where you lose money. That's just a cyclical game of farming that has gone on for decades and decades and decades. And it's gone on, the ups and downs of this stuff forever. On Republican and Democrat administrations, all sorts of different situations. It's fluctuated forever. So, really a responsible farmer, I'm not saying it's reality, but a responsible farmer should have the means to float at least a year or two, if things get really bad. And, if 90 days are making people freak out, the average guy, you probably should be doing things a little bit different.
Yeah.
But most farmers, like I said, there's going to be a lot of times where people are going to have 2 or 3 tough years in any dynamic in the future. And then we also just came out of a period where we had 3 really good years where guys were like, I was killing it. And it's human nature. Like, okay, you kill it. Now, are you saving for a rainy day? Which is coming. And some did and some didn't.
My dad, he said that several times. He said, what I'm really worried about the young farmers today is they haven't seen the 80s. Like, most of the farmers that are older, and most farmers are older, were either really young and watched people go through the 80s, or they were there. And he's like, they weren't even alive when the farming crisis was going on. So they're going out and they're like, of course it'll be good. And they're just getting, leases on this equipment and getting, renting at $375 an acre. And he's like, well, it all comes tumbling down really fast, and they don't have the experience to even know, I had a really good year, I should put $400,000 in the bank account because I'm going to lose $200 in a couple of years.
That part of that, the big part of that pie is going to be human nature. People are just going to do that. Prices were good. I bought a brand new combine. I bought 3 brand new trucks. I bought a brand new tractor. It was the same way as the building market up in Des Moines in 2008. these guys were going crazy building these houses up by me and just leveraging themselves to the max. Employees, brand new trucks. They go bankrupt. Things start turning around like 5, 6, 7 years later. And all of a sudden they're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Like you just saw what this horrible time was, and you're right back to
we're seeing
yourselves. And
the amount of people I know that in 2020 or 2021 bought a house at 2.3%. Well, guess what, Skip? We're at that 5-year balloon phase for the interest rates. So it goes from 2.5% to 7%. Or let's say they locked in the 2.5 or 3 point whatever percent, and they're house poor. They had a couple kids. Now they can't afford where they're living, so they need to move. The problem is they're going to get 6.5 or 7% rate, so they have to go from 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms to a shed in a pig field. You know what I mean? That's like their options, and so we've stuck ourselves. But like the bankers they're not worried about. It's hard to describe, but bankers will just say yes to giving you a loan if they even think the asset will come close to paying it off. And I'm not saying all bankers are bad people. I really like my banker. I ask him for advice all the time, but he's way more willing to say yes than an average American should be willing to get into debt, right? They should be on the most extreme willing to say yes, and the consumer should be the most like, I don't want to get into that, the most resistant to getting into debt. But we just love having our cake and eating it too. We love it.
That's why we're 37, 38, whatever it is, trillion in debt.
Yeah.
And I mean, I did something that I almost never do. I think I've done it twice. And I bought a new vehicle. And I bought it's a Tacoma. It wasn't a ton of money.
Yeah.
But when I went in there, I'm like, how many people are getting loans on these? I like asking people different questions. He's like, I don't know, 85, 90%. I'm like, what are the payments? He started telling me what people make for payments. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So they're paying interest on, you pay 6% interest on this vehicle that's going down in value probably by 6% at least.
Yeah.
And you're putting fuel in it and insurance. It's going down in value. Like, oh man.
Yeah, I do not understand the car thing.
Crazy.
And a lot of people I know,
it's just becoming another mortgage for people. You know what I mean? It is very normal to have a mortgage. So now people are having a mortgage on their house and on their vehicle.
I think it will be weird to own a car in 20 years. I mean, out here in the middle of nowhere, people will still own them. But I think self-driving cars are just going to go around, and you're going to pay $300 a month or whatever to always be able to click that button, get in the car, and you'll get a certain amount of miles you're allowed to travel in these cars, and they'll come and pick you up. And I think that the era of the car, of the self-driving car, the freedom, the American freedom of the car is slipping away.
Yeah, you know what? Now that you say that, I just got a notice from my insurance company, who I've had a great relationship with, and
the plug for McKay Insurance. We love McKay Insurance.
Don't worry, it's not that insurance company.
I don't dislike them. We just need to change who's in charge and who's on the board of that insurance company.
But I have a full ton truck that isn't my daily driver. I just use it I just bought some.
He does donut. He goes to the local high school and does donuts around to show those high schoolers who's up.
In a full ton truck, no, he wouldn't. You couldn't spin the tires fast enough to do that. I used it to go pick up some farm equipment from an auction this last weekend. But I got a notice from my insurance company. It's a 2000. So it's.
Did you get that pull type? No. You got that bearing.
I got a combine cylinder and I got 2 seed cleaners. I paid $2.50 for each of my seed cleaners.
Nice.
But the insurance company said we are no longer going to insure this vehicle. Never had a claim on it. Never. And
well, you got your 4th DUI a couple weeks
ago. Oh yeah. I'm not supposed to talk about that on the podcast. But I have no DUIs on my record. Just out of the blue, and it just made me think, is this like a new way of where old vehicles are going to start getting phased out because they're deemed like a safety concern.
Why wouldn't you get insured? Just have liability on it.
Yeah, maybe that's.
Wait, did you have collision on it?
I think I do. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't have collision on it. My
Your new
Tacoma
stuff
I
you
do.
do?
The rest of them I don't have collision on it.
Sure, maybe
so
that's
it's super cheap. And I probably have some of my farm vehicles that are worth like, I mean, one of them was worth like $500. One of them's maybe worth $3,000. Like I probably have totaled them like 10 times over.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because of how many whitetail you have out here in your part of Iowa.
I
would be kind of
bumpers.
nervous.
I have these heavy steel welded bumpers.
Yeah,
There's no deer damage.
This truck is still in great shape. It's got a brand new flatbed on it.
Yeah, you don't have coverage on that.
Yeah, I like it too
You
much,
should be embarrassed, Ken.
Yeah, I guess.
Anyway,
but yeah, I just wonder if that's going to be part of the it's all part of the movement. Not that it's intentional, is not what like a conspiracy.
You will own nothing,
but just like the cultural shift towards everything is brand new or 5 years or less, and that's what insurance companies are proposing.
I remember in like 2019, I was home for the summer working, and I was working in a field with Ben DeRoos and our good friend Ben, and he said, yeah, it's kind of interesting with farming and all this housing and renting and stuff. We're kind of going back to a lords and serfs model. And I was like, you crazy weird dude. What are you talking about? And by golly, we're getting to the point where no one owns cars. You just rent it from the person you work for. And we know some farmers where it's not the end of the world, but it's just on a macro level. They have a huge farm. They hire all these people. And a lot of those people rent a house on that person's farm. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, well, I don't know. And I think, and it's the same think about phones. Like you basically lease phones. Who knows what those contracts actually say? Yeah. They keep telling me I'm going to pay $39.99 a month. I keep paying $89.99 a month, and every time I go in, so you swear this is what I'm going to pay out of my bank account. And then as soon as you sign,
you can get collision insurance on your phone.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what I was saying. Like there was that old World Forum thing they put out that said you will own nothing and be happier.
Oh, World Economic Forum, Klaus.
Yes. And people were so angry about that.
What is that? Is that Davos? Is that what that came out
I don't think it was Davos. I think it was another
Davos. That's how you say it.
But like even video games. So Skip would play a bunch of video games. You don't own the video game. You own the right to play it and you download it digitally. Isn't that interesting? You don't own anything.
I don't have to worry about all these things. I just set up my farm and
do you own your skid loader? You're not leasing it?
I don't have payments on things. It's crazy.
Life goals. Yeah, I thankfully have no car payments.
I've never had a car payment my whole life.
Really? That's great.
No.
We did it for 3 vehicles, and by the third vehicle, I was so sick of it, and I couldn't. I was down to. We just had one vehicle that we had payments on, and I could not wait to be done making payments on that thing. And then God bailed me out. Somebody else did get a DUI, and while I was sleeping safely in my bed with my car parked out on one of the busiest roads in West Davenport, somebody just smacked the snot out of that while they were drunk.
Oh, that's right. And it was like a RAV4.
Yeah, it was a great car, but it was like our family was getting too big for it, and we needed something a little bigger, but I wasn't going to go and get another car payment. I was going to pay the thing off. Well, the insurance check covered it, and I thankfully have not had to have a car payment since.
Man, so, my wife and I, we saved $300 a month.
That's my virtue signal.
I'll let you know mine here real quick. My wife and I, we saved $300 a month for a new car for her because her car started pooping out years ago. The problem is we agreed we would step in and use that $300 a month we've been saving for years at this point to buy her a new car. As soon as her RAV4 poops out, it's going to poop out any day. Nah, brother.
They go forever.
No, they go forever. So she's going to get like a Maserati one day because we've been saving so long.
That's awesome.
But it finally goes out. But yeah, Kent and I have both have our nightmare debt stories that we've had to shoulder, and we're over it. And I'm glad we're over it so young because some people they don't learn the lesson, and it's tough. I got one more question before we take off.
All right.
Let's get a little heated.
So we just had the primaries.
Yep.
Zach Lane and Rob Sand.
Yep.
What is the one most important issue, or maybe if you have a couple, that's fine. What is it coming down?
Just share a word of advice or what you would implore them to.
Yeah, what are you looking for in them to? Because what's interesting is Rob Sand is a true sportsman. He's not going around toting that because it's fake. He really is a sportsman. And Zach Lane is a true conservationist. Yep. He is putting a ton of prairie on his farm, and so
I mean, R or D, both those people better earn your votes. That's why I was actually very glad to see Feenstra lose when he didn't show up, and most of the people didn't know who he was, and meeting the people at the Capitol who are his, I guess he was at the federal level, but most of the people in his own party not even liking him or supporting him. You have to earn the vote. You have to show up. You have to do things. So I'm really glad about that, actually. So, both these people have to earn your vote. And, I've got my list of the things to ask each candidate. And I kind of even jotted a few things down, but, I think there's some things, before the election, like if I were to ask them, and I think I would want to know, they're going to want to run for a second term. So there's some things where we need to have metrics in place to go, how did you do? Like, are you going to get IWILL passed? I think that's really important. Are you going to implement IWILL? Is that going to happen? Because that will help the state of Iowa in so many different regards. Fixing the rural towns, which I talked about, getting the young people not leaving Iowa. We can measure that, okay? The amount of young people leaving the state of Iowa, we know what that number is. If in 4 years these people, if that rate has increased, then they don't deserve to be reelected.
Do you think you could turn that around in just 4 years?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And they certainly should be slowing it. So we have the data, and we have to keep the politicians that work for us accountable.
Yeah.
And there needs to be metrics in place that we can measure them by. So if they say, hey, XYZ amount of people, young people, are leaving the state of Iowa right now, in 4 years, we're going to know what the new number is. And it better be better. It needs to be better. It needs to be lower. It needs to be slowed. And somebody who did a fantastic job would say, hey, we're actually increasing the amount of young people staying in the state of Iowa, and economic, and also by all the activities they can do, hunting, fishing, all these other things. We can keep a lot of these people, and that's a whole nother discussion. Another measurable for either of these candidates going into the next election, but they need to be lowering the nitrates, and we can also measure that. And there's not a voter in Iowa, R or D, that wants to be drinking more nitrates or wants to have more nitrates in the rivers. Even the farmers that are putting nitrates out in the field, they don't want that in the water. So are we doing things to fix that? And there's honestly, fairly common sense, not that costly of things we can do, like buffers, like native grasses that have 10 and 15 foot deep root systems by the creeks that are going to suck up nitrogen, things like that. So in 4 years, did you reduce the nitrate level? Is our cancer rate slowing? Stuff like that. And I do want to ask both of them, are you going to side with the residents of the state of Iowa, the resident hunters, and support us against, the special interests that are just looking to exploit our state? And we're going to have some conversations there. Yeah. And that's a conversation for both of these candidates, and we're going to be having it. But they need to be on the right side of that, because that's siding with a huge voter block in Iowa. I mean, it's a massive amount of people. And if they're not siding with the residents of Iowa and the outdoorsmen of Iowa and outdoorswomen of Iowa, then they're siding with the special interests. And if they're siding with the special interests and they can be bought out, if they can be bought out on, the hunting, the environment, the farming community, then they can be bought out on other things. Mm-hmm. And I don't want somebody that's a sellout.
I had an interesting conversation with someone about the being bought out thing. And what they said, a lot of politicians, they get bought out by one or two groups that care about one thing.
Yep.
And so you go and they'll, if you're in behind closed doors, they'll say, hey, look, I'm open to anything that'll help these people except this one thing. This one, I got in because of this one thing with this company or special interest group. I am going to vote this way with this one thing. You can't stop me. But all these other things, and I have really strong mixed feelings about it. Like I swing either way. I'm like, okay, I kind of understand like being loyal to, but also shouldn't take money from the devil, if you're going to, just to get in, just so you can do good in all the other ways. It's just, that's not a foundation you want to build on.
For example, I want Farm Bureau to have a seat at the table. I want to see how Farm Bureau is managed and the people who are on the board of Farm Bureau. I want a younger generation with a different mindset because I think they're fundamentally misdirected at what their goals are and what the results across the state of Iowa have been and what they fight for. It's very concerning for me. But if they are going to be beholden to Farm Bureau and do whatever Farm Bureau says, that is disqualifying. It is a disqualifier. You cannot be owned by Farm Bureau. And it doesn't mean that I can't be allies with Farm Bureau on certain issues. I mean, I'm a farmer. There's certain things I do align with them on. It's just that organization has a lot of things that it's like, you're going to vote this way on things that are absolutely wrong. And we have issues right now we can point to and say, this is a big problem for our state. And we need to fix. So by definition, probably 2 or 3 of the top issues in our state directly relate to farming. And sorry, you're going to have to be able to say no to Farm Bureau on certain things. And I'll be an ally with Farm Bureau on some things, but there's definitely things in our state that need to change. And we need a candidate that will say no to Farm Bureau.
Besides the Democrat and Republican Party as a whole, is there any special interest group that is more prominent at the Iowa state level than Farm Bureau?
They're probably number one, but I would say things have really shifted in the last 5 years where, all these different conservation, outdoor, different farming groups, even coalitions of voter blocks that care about these issues, that are paying attention to these issues, and especially things that have gone in the wrong direction, have really shifted how much power Farm Bureau has. And the people now in these coalitions and these different organizations that, they just stand for a lot better things and are more advanced than some of the antiquated, stubborn, old school Farm Bureau members. They've got a bigger seat at the table and there's more balance. So I would say things are changing in Iowa just based on this last primary election, based on who the 2 candidates are. I think we're getting better and we're realizing what our problems are. And I feel very optimistic we're going to solve them.
Man, I love that. Well, Skip, we love hanging out.
Yeah,
thanks for having us out here again. It was a good time.
Thanks for coming.
I always get distracted by the sheds and the mounts when I'm here.
Yeah.
While I'm talking to you, that one with that nice flyer off the back of the G2 there.
So literally we're doing this and I'm literally staring out my window, like not distracted really, but it's like, and I've looked at this for 15 years.
Yeah.
But I never get bored of it.
Yeah.
I still appreciate it.
There's not many things you can say about or say that about,
Yeah.
So pretty special on its ground.
We're blessed in the state of Iowa and we have a duty to make it better.
Yeah.
Love it.
We really appreciate you. Everyone, don't forget, conservation happens just like with Skip Sligh, one mind at a time.